What's up, everybody? Welcome back to your favorite New York Jets subscription podcast, Badlands. I'm your host, Joe Caporoso, where there is an emergency pod per week, every week. I got Will Parkinson on because Connor is on his goddamn bachelor party, and the Jets only do moves when we have important social things going on or when it's Friday. The New York Jets have traded for Haason Reddick, getting their much-needed edge rusher after losing Bryce Huff. Will, how we feeling about this? We're gonna dig into it here.
Yeah, look, I think I don't know. I'm just in such a weird headspace right now and you're so excited about the player. Haason Reddick is an incredibly good football player. That dude, all he does is hit the quarterback. I don't know. I tweeted out before. He's like 120 or 130 pressures. 27 sacks, 50 quarterback hits in the last 34 games. He plays every game. He plays a ton of percent of the snaps. He's an awesome guy. I got people around the league texting me like, it's just an amazing thing for the Jets. And you're just sitting there like, why does it always have to be difficult that like they had to let Huff go and then they trade for the guy that Huff's replacing and they're giving up draft capital in 2058? It's like, why can't it ever be easy? Like, it's just
because it's the Jets. There's no straight line. It's a winding road.
I will say this is outside of Rodgers. I mean, you and Connor have talked a lot about this offseason. You guys were talking a lot about the creative receiver trade. And I think we've talked a lot about that. This is the first non-Rodgers trade, which, no offense, wasn't very creative. It was actually the opposite of creative and ended up being such a elongated process. This is the first time they've like traded for an awesome all-pro level player, like, and gotten creative with it. It's creative comp picks and 2-3 years down the line. They've done a lot of trading assets off or getting like, I'm going to use my one curse here, some shitty veteran for a 6th-round pick in the middle of the season that has 4 catches. That's one thing. You're trading for, I don't know, what is he, one of the 8 best edge rushers in the league at worst, and like you're going all in to win a title. And that's like pretty cool as a Jets fan to at least be like, they're trying to win. That at least has to make you feel pretty good, regardless of losing Huff and all that other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, look, great football player, a guy who could get after the quarterback with a high consistency, make a huge difference week to week, a consistent double-digit sack player. And I talked about this a little bit when I was recording with Dalbin earlier today, and most of what we recorded is still relevant, that we talked about the Last Dance Jets. This is really that Last Dance Jets offseason. Being this kind of aggressive and this kind of creative for the type of proven players that they have added in Tyron Smith, in Morgan Moses, in Mike Williams, and now in Haason Reddick. These are, what you are getting with these guys when they are on the field. And this is the kind of team that when you go all in with Aaron Rodgers and he's going to be 41, put the chips in the middle of the table because you have to win this year or this whole trade didn't work and it didn't matter. Reddick is a win now player. The mechanics and the route of getting from losing Huff to showing interest in Clowney to then ending up just trading for Reddick for the team that Huff went to, it's not perfect. But what I will credit Joe Douglas for is that we've talked a lot about what you just said. Get creative to find solutions and to fill what the glaring needs are on this team. And he's done that. The Morgan Moses trade was a perfect example of that. And this trade is a perfect example of that. You cannot complain about anything in terms of the player that Reddick is. It's exactly what they needed. And I know you could be excited about Will McDonald in a bigger role. You could be excited about Jermaine Johnson in a bigger role. This defense needed another real edge rusher. They had to have it. And they got one who, I love Jermaine Johnson, but Reddick is the best pass rusher on the team now. He's the best pure pass rusher on the team. He now gets to rush off Quinton Williams, what you're still getting from JFM on the interior, what you'll get from Kinlaw. And it's going to make Jermaine Johnson and Will McDonald's life that much easier because of all the attention he's going to bring. There's no reason Jermaine Johnson can't get 9 or 10 sacks next year. There's no reason Will McDonald can't take a step forward. But for the kind of team the Jets need to be next year, you needed a closer because you're finally going to have a chance to play with the lead, which is why we all were like, why would you let go of Huff? Now, Huff is younger, and the Jets are paying $14.5 million for Reddick, and it sounds like they're going to renegotiate a new deal with him. The trade comp, it's a 2026 third-round pick that could be a second if Reddick gets 10 sacks or plays more than 67%.
You'll take it.
I'll take it. I can tell you everyone in that building who works in football operations, They don't give a crap about 2026 picks because it's not going to matter to them if they don't win in 2024 and in 2025. And the compensation is really nothing to complain about at all. Money wise, like you could look at it from the Eagles' perspective and say, look, like we are selling at the right time on Reddick and buying at the right time on Huff. And this is like the lens of the move that we're doing. And everyone will be comparing Huff and Reddick's sacks, not just this year, but year over year. And I think you'll probably have a window here where like they'll be the same or Reddick will be slightly higher this year. And then over time, it's going to be Huff, Huff. But for the Jets, and if you're a Jet fan, that doesn't really matter because Aaron Rodgers is probably only your quarterback for 2 years. If you're lucky, you probably have 2 years here. And really, you got this 1 year where he's going to be 40 and 41. Once you start talking 42, like unless you're Tom Brady, that's like scary stuff. So you can hear it in my voice. I'm excited because this guy is an awesome football player. And he is a more like matured version of what Huff, I think, is going to become in Philly. But this defense, coached by Saleh, coached by Albert, coached by White Cotton, with Reddick in the mix now with Jermaine and Quinnen, it's this roster on paper is, this feels insane to say. So you got to reality check me here because I do kind of get reeled in. Is this roster on paper the best roster in the AFC East now? After this
probably, yeah. It's hard to find a roster that's on paper, at least name wise. And again, this is on paper. So before Bills and Dolphins fans inevitably jump down our throats, on paper, the Jets roster is better than the Bills roster. Again, on paper, it is. And Miami's lost a lot this offseason. And I don't know, they've tried to replace some guys, but I don't know what they're going to look like. They got a fully healthy 17 games out of Tua, and they still choked away to the division. So is Reddick's the best pass rusher on paper in the division now? Like who's better?
I think so.
I guess you could argue Chubb and Phillips, maybe Jermaine, these other guys, but Vaughn 2 or 3 years ago. I think like the Jets might have the 2 best pass rushers in the division. If you count Quinnen, like he's the best interior, might be his best player and one of the 5 or 6 best skill guys or non position players, like outside of like Tyreek and a few of these other guys. Like he's probably the best player, at least defensive player in the division now, especially Wilkins is gone, these other guys. And Reddick's probably the best pass rusher, at least on paper. He's 27 sacks. I just looked it up. It's 135. I'm looking at it right now. 135 pressures, 50 quarterback hits, 81 hurries, 27 sacks, 6 forced fumbles, 3 recovered, and a 14.5% pressure rate in his last 1,600 snaps. So, look, you mentioned it there. They're just in this mode where they have a 2-year window before they got to pay Jermaine, pay Sauce. We keep saying Jermaine first. They got to pay Sauce and Garrett Wilson and some of these other guys, and they're going to have to redo Quincy Williams again in 2 years, and the list goes on. And next off season's Carter and Conklin and DJ Reed if they want to do that. And there's a bunch of things going on. We haven't even talked about, I talked a little bit about it yesterday on my part. Like JFM's a really good player, and now you can get flexible again with JFM where, passing downs, is it Jermaine, JFM, Quinn, and Reddick, and then Will McDonald's kind of that sub guy. Is it, do you mix it? You can mix in a Kinlaw. Now even his role doesn't have to be quite as dramatic, or Solomon Thomas, or some of these other guys that I don't know. You're not like thrilled. Like they're like kind of the rotational guys. What's that mean for Michael Clemens? Like I don't know. Michael Clemens probably doesn't play very much this year. Maybe he's a guy that they trade on draft night for a 7th round pick or with 6th round pick, and you say like, hey, somebody else will take him. We'll get some capital back here. I don't know. I'm not saying they're going to trade. Yeah, I'm not saying they're going to trade Clemens. I'm just saying like it opens up. Like Reddick takes that 4th. He's not one of one on the edge guys, but he was that 4th edge. He's a better player than Clowney is. The Clowney made sense. You weren't giving up draft capital. It was a 1-year thing. He's really good against the run. He's a tough dude and all that stuff. But once Clowney went to 2 years, I don't know, 2026 pick and Reddick over 2 years, or Clowney, like you're taking Reddick all day long. So I think there's no reason you can be skeptical about how they got to acquiring Reddick. And we obviously haven't seen what contract he's going to get. So again, reserve judgment. This is being posted at 5:13 on Friday. So if they come out and give him a 4-year deal, which I don't think they will, but if that happens, maybe I'll feel differently. But As of now, they gave up a pick in 3 years, a conditional pick on day 2 for a guy who should comfortably get you 12 to 14 sacks next year if he's just back of the baseball card good. If he's even a little bit better than that playing next to Quinnen, is he a 16 sack guy again? And then you're like, wow, this is the Jets' best edge season since Bryce Huff, and then like they come since John Abraham, and then before that, obviously Gastineau and these other guys. So maybe it's fitting they're going back to the sack exchange, jerseys. And I know you posted it before, but I look at this move and I'm like, the excitement. I can't reiterate enough the excitement and the text I've gotten from players over the last 30 minutes of just like, this is awesome. Like, we're going for it. And I know people think that players don't read into this stuff as much and during the offseason. You know how exciting it has to be for an organization that gets dragged through the mud constantly. And you see your team going out and like, hey, we're going to try to win a title. And a lot of these guys are like, we go win a title, I'm going to get paid, and that's going to be on a contract, and that's marketing dollars and all these different things. It doesn't just affect, one or two. I don't know. It's an exciting thing. I think if you're anything but excited about most of the moves they've made this offseason, I think you can have tempered expectations, right? In terms of, hey, we haven't seen Rodgers yet, and Mike Williams off the knee, and like, that's all fair. There's all fair criticisms, and we have 5 months to debate who's going to stay healthy and what. But I don't know. Reddick plays every game. Like, that's not a guy I'm worried about. The concerns are like, he's 29, maybe in 2 years, is the investment is worth it? I don't know. Like, who gives a, like, they haven't made the playoffs since Obama's second year in office.
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
You can't concern yourself with that stuff at this moment. And the equation for how you're building the team changed dramatically when you went and got Aaron Rodgers. And then when Aaron Rodgers got hurt 4 plays into the season, it changed that much more and created that much of a groundswell of urgency for this season. It is truly a team you are building. Let's call for a 2-year window. I hope it can be a true 2-year window, not just a 1 year, like ride it and the whole thing falls apart. And look, this will kind of answer a couple of the questions we got in the Discord. I'm going to save the rest because we're doing a home and home. We're going to do our first emergency, like getting rowdy celebration here. And then we're going to keep it rolling and we'll run the rest on TOJ Talks tomorrow, also on this feed. So it's from Hudson Jet. Did we give away Bryce Huff to Philly only to trade with Philly for Haason Reddick? Really? Question mark. And there's a lot of this sentiment in Twitter, balanced by kind of on the other side. This is from Michael55. Can you explain the situation that has arisen with losing Huff and getting Reddick? Not painting this in a negative light. Curious if you think Reddick is an upgrade for this 2-year window over Huff, knowing the money that Huff got and what we paid in draft capital for Reddick, assuming it's a third, not a second. Rate this move both in a vacuum with the context of losing Huff. Does that change your ranking of the move? I think we still need to see the money with Reddick. I mean, they're going to pay him a meaningful amount of money, right? Like, and I think if you're an Eagles fan, you're like, we got a cheaper, younger version of Reddick who's about to enter his prime, and Reddick's about to exit his prime. And on the Jets side of it, you say like, well, Reddick's got 27 sacks over the last 2 years. And there's no reason to think in this scheme that he's not going to get 11 to 15 sacks next year if he's healthy, which he generally always is. For the Jets, like in the 2-year window, I think it is very fair to say that there's a world where Reddick will be a better player overall than Bryce Huff the next 2 years. Like that should be the starting expectation. Like, I think there's certainly a world where Huff is better, but like day one, first snap of this season, to date, Reddick is a better player without question. Now, 3 years from now, 4 years from now, we look back on it, we look back on the totality, maybe that's different. But if Reddick has like 13 sacks this year and the Jets win a home playoff game and he's a huge part of that, no one's going to really care. And like, I know that's short-sighted. And I was like, well, what about 3 years from now? It's got to go out the window. You got a playoff drought you have to end. You have Aaron Rodgers for like a year or two. I have no idea who the quarterback's going to be after that. No one in the Jets building has any plan or idea of who the quarterback is going to be after it. This is the last hurrah for this regime. And if it is, they're handling it the right way. So this is not a move that's without flaws. Like everyone who listens to Badlands or TOJ knows how we all feel about how the Huff situation was handled. We won't beat the dead horse again. I think similar to how like, well, they messed up with Zach Wilson. They had to go to extremes to fix it with Aaron Rodgers. This is on a smaller scale. Like they mess up the Huff situation. They found a way to go like pretty much clean it up. And in the context of an offseason where you're getting Tyron Smith and you're getting Morgan Moses and you're getting Mike Williams, You're getting Wario Lakin in there, and like you're doing the other things that they'll likely do to round out this offseason, and now we don't have to stress at all about defense in round one. It's a move to be excited about, and it's fair to be like, again, the mechanics of the roster building here, they're not perfect. They're not writing roster building books on this. It doesn't mean it might not work over the 2-year window. The Jets are trying to be the Matthew Stafford Rams and the Tom Brady Bucks and use that formula to win a Super Bowl. And I know it's not an exact parallel. And the Jets probably aren't going to win a Super Bowl because only one team wins a Super Bowl every year. But can we start with winning the AFC East? And the fact that we can even have a credible conversation of the Jets having the best roster in the AFC East is exciting. So any final thoughts before we jump over to your feed?
Yeah, no, look, I think there's every reason to be excited about if you just focus on the player and what they gave up to get him, and you just, again, this is not how it works, so you can't forget about what happened with Bryce Huff, and you can't forget about kind of how they got here. But if you just told me the Jets added Haason Reddick on reasonable edge money for a 2026 third-round pick, I'd tell you there's no shot that happens. Just because he's an awesome player. Like, I don't know how to, like, I can't say this enough. Arizona letting him walk 2 years ago was hysterically stupid. And you want to talk about bad run organizations, have fun looking into some of the Cardinals moves the last couple of years. And look, Reddick's an awesome player. He's going to be an awesome fit with the Jets. He fits, what they want to do, which is just these hyper explosive, get downhill edge guys. I posted Haason Reddick's last 2 years worth of sacks. I put an NSFW tag on it because it looks like Bryce Huff. Like it does. It is what it is. Look, do I think the Eagles made out well with what the situation? They're going to pay Bryce Huff 2 for $11 for the next 2 years, and they got a third-round pick in 2026 for Haason Reddick. Like, sure, yeah, obviously, like, I get it from their side. But also from the Jets side, like, they had to do something here, and I didn't expect them to swing this big. I thought we talked to Calais Campbell, these other guys. I'm sorry, I'm a lot more excited about 29-year-old Haason Reddick coming off a double-digit sack season than Calais Campbell at 38. I watched him Calais Campbell the other day. I was like, he might be old. Regardless, the point still stands. You should be excited, and I will leave the cliffhanger with this to go over the other pod. This makes me feel like the trade up, the aggressive, go get Marv, Neighbors, or Rome type of move. Like, you're all in.
We're on the agenda.
It's on the agenda now, and it's like not just me talking about it. Now I'm like, buddy, I don't know, man. Like, go for it. This would be pretty exciting.
What a great reminder to go to badlandstoj.com right now and buy your draft party ticket before the pre-sale goes, so you can be in the room with Will and I while we're yelling and trying to figure out the best way to strategically record a pod, celebrating this inevitable trade up for a playmaker. So thank you everyone for listening. Happy to do 3 straight weeks of emergency pods. This is awesome. Check out the feed tomorrow for Will and I continuing this conversation in TOJ Talks.